Hi, welcome to Wrokdown. I'm Wendy Stapleton. Over the past 12 months, we've recorded over 40 episodes of Wrokdown, and we're constantly surprised by the amount of artists who are still writing and performing, but with very little media interest. Well, my next guest is never out of the media. He has been a producer, a manager, a pop journalist, but I think one of our most beloved TV hosts. Would you please welcome Mr. Ian Molly Meldrum.
Hello,
Take a seat. Take a seat. Our most beloved TV host.
Oh, that's very, very
Do you like
nice.
that?
Yeah.
Do you like that? Listen, I must thank you for coming to see us, because over the last month you've been incredibly busy with, of course, you had to cover Michael Jackson's service and so many things that were just thrust at you in such a rush. How did you handle all of that?
Well, I mean, it's just one of those weird things. I mean, the day that that it happened, it was like 7:30 in the morning, and I was still in bed, and the phone rang, and it was a radio station, you know, and they said, "Sorry, Molly, to get you up, but we need you to comment on Michael Jackson." And I said, "About what?" And they said, "Well, it looks as if Michael Jackson has died in Los Angeles." And I went, "Pardon?" And then my thinking was, "Oh my God, this is like some crazy got you, And I just couldn't take it in, you know what I mean?
Can I start way back? When you're a young boy, you were from the country?
Yep.
And your brother?
There's two brothers. There's Robert, who's an actor, and he's he also directs plays, etc. And a drama coach, which I didn't learn from, as much as I may throw a lot of drama. And Brian, who was just, when he was growing up, just absolutely loved horse racing, and eventually became a writer for the local paper when he was around about 7 or 18, and then became a writer for the Herald Sun, and became the editor for racing for the Herald Sun, and then the editor for golf. And so yeah, it's been weird.
So all the families in the media sort of business?
Yeah, in this one way or another.
Did it come from any particular person in your family, or was
No, well, I'm known as the black sheep, so I mean, I just don't know,
Why?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. But no, I mean, we're very lucky. I mean, I was brought in my early days up by my grandma, more than living with my family. And my mum was very musical, but my grandma was totally musical, So she gave me a great insight way back as far as music and the love for music, for the classics, and then basically to the musical comedies. So I loved music at a very early stage, and loved orchestras. I just loved arrangements of orchestras and fascinated me, And I was very lucky, to be taken by my mum and my grandma, and then eventually my mum again, to things like music for the people at the Myer Music Bowl.
Oh, okay, all the big
with Hector Crawford and his orchestra, the Victorian Symphony Orchestra, I think it was back then, And again, I'd be just fascinated, So then once I started making up what I really wanted to do, I was very lucky. I was hanging around. Well, I shared a place with Ronnie Burns and his mum and dad, Uncle Bob and Auntie Edna, and Ronnie was already in a group, and we followed the Beatles.
Was that the Flies?
The Flies. He was in the group, the Flies, which I believe one of your guests on, Gary Spry, who also is a mentor of mine as well, a great friend. He managed Ronnie and the boys, and then I hung around with another group called the GROOP group. Basically, as a roadie, I guess, or a groupie or whatever. And I went to the recording sessions at Bill Armstrong Studios, and Bill Armstrong gave me the chance with Roger Savage to learn record production. And then Russell was in a group called Somebody's Image, who were friends of part of the group, of Ronnie Charles, who'd become the lead singer of the group. And they were the support actor to the group down at the Anglesey Lifesaving Club and the Lawn Lifesaving Club. And I did go to them and I said I'd like to manage on learning record production. And so basically my first hit was in fact with Somebody's Image, with Russell being the lead singer, was Hush Hush,
So who found the real thing?
The real thing is an interesting story, I guess, only in so many ways, where Happening 70, no, it was Uptight, I think. Would have been Uptight still. The 4-hour show on a Saturday morning.
Wiley.
Rusty Wiley. And Johnny Young was there one time, and we're all in the dressing room, and the masters were there, and he was playing just the people in the dressing room some songs he'd written. And I was looking for a song for Russell, and he played The Girl That I Love. He came up to me and said, "Look, I believe you're looking for some songs for Russell Morris."
I didn't realise he wrote that as well.
And he wrote The Girl That I Love. And then he played this other song, mainly to the masters and everyone like that, which was The Real Thing. I thought, we've got to have that song, you know. And so then John was very hesitant because he was going to use that himself in his band. And John had literally written it as his version of I Am a Walrus, you know.
The mau. Was that because he hadn't written any words, or was it always going to be that?
No, what happened, no. What happened there was...
I often wondered about that.
Yeah, no, what happened was that John, wanting it to be like I Am the Walrus, right? But he wanted a guitar in it, right? And so that was like going to be a guitar sound, a guitar break of some sort, you know? And Don Moody, because the group basically did the backing track with Brian Cadd and the rest of the boys, and Don Moody was the lead guitarist, and he couldn't come in that night for the band track. So I actually I actually hummed or sang what I imagined a guitar sound would look like.
Is that bit?
Where it was like an mama mama. And then when Russell came to do a vocal, I said, "Can you just do that bit so it'll give me the guideline
for the guitar?"
And when Russell suddenly started doing it, of my impersonation to his impersonation of a guitar, I went, "Oh my God, that's a lyric." What?
When the record company executives from Sydney, because you spent quite a while doing The Real Thing.
Yeah, I mean, it was, well, I mean, the thing was that when the boys came in, they were playing down at Anglesey, and they came down to put the backing track down. And we were like doing, recording, backing track after backing track. And finally I said, "Listen, I wouldn't mind you going into double time at the end, see what happens there, you know." And so away they went, and suddenly it went into double time, and I went, "Oh my God," you know. So I went into the studio and went, keep going, until basically Richard Wright, who was the drummer, had enough and literally fell off the drums, and there was that little at the end there, you know.
How long did it go for?
6.5 minutes, and I said, "Well, great, you know, we can." And then my imagination went crazy, and with John Sayer, the engineer who worked for Armstrong's, and we were in the studios a long time, you know. And God bless Bill Armstrong, he was covering us to some extent, you know. But I didn't realise how much money we were spending. And normally, back then, an album, believe it or not, may cost, $3,000 or $4,000, you know, to do an album. And I was already up to $9,000 and $10,000 for this single. And they freaked out, and I sent them up, the completed song. And I get this message back, "Well, we've received the B-side, where's the A-side, you know?"
Russell told me that when you realised that the executives were coming down to Armstrong's...
Oh, for the final mix.
You ran away with the tapes in your hand.
I did.
Over to the golf course over the road and hid.
Well, yeah, but I actually got caught on the back fence on the barbed wire on the way over, you know. And I had them giving me a lecture. So they said, "OK, we'll do one more, you can have one more mix." And I did it on a Saturday afternoon. And I guess whether it was the pressure or whatever, it all worked that Saturday afternoon.
Amazing, I love that story. We'll take a short break and be back with Ian Meldrum.
Down.
Welcome back to Wrokdown. My special guest this evening is Ian Meldrum. So we were in the studio with The Real Thing.
Yeah, just quickly sort of rewinding a bit there though. I was living with Auntie and Uncle Bob, Ronnie Burns' parents. Ronnie was having a great successful career by now, you know, both with the Flyers and then as a solo artist. Then Go Set started, which was the rock paper, the weekly rock paper.
That's right.
Anyhow, I was asked if I'd like to write an article on Ronnie, because I knew that there were people that owned Go Set. And so I wrote the article. Next week, I was offered a job, only £10 a week. And so I started Go Set, and then things happened very quickly. And this was all in '66, right? I then started doing the record production and learning that. And also Kommotion, which was the mime show on 5 nights a week for half an hour, and the best of on a Sunday. They offered me, because the cast had walked out, so they decided to replace the entire cast. And they asked me if I'd like to become part of the cast, and I said, no way, you know. And then Philip Fraser, who was the editor of Go Set and the owner of Go Set, said, no, take it on, it'll be good promotion for the paper. So that all happened so quickly.
So that's how you ended up
yeah.
on
And also
the telly.
'66, St Kilda won the grand final, which is the only one ever. So, my God, in a couple of weeks' time, we better be good.
You better be good, you hear that?
Come on. Come on, Rui.
So in actual fact then, taking Kommotion was the setup for you getting your head on telly?
Yeah, I mean, because then Kommotion stopped, because, and rightly so, because the musicians union said, no, you can't be miming anymore, the whole thing like that, you know. And then David Joseph, who'd started off Kommotion, who was the one that went out with the original cast, he started the show on a Saturday morning, which was called Uptight with Ross Wiley, you know. And, you know, there were some wonderful characters. I mean, apart from Denise being with us on Kommotion and Keith Miller and all those wonderful people on Kommotion, was Tony Healy, you know.
Tony Healy, yeah.
And we all sort of, one way or another, ended up on Uptight. And Uptight, then, because I was writing for Go Set, I became the interviewer of the music side of things, you know. And so it all really happened from there.
That's all how it led into Countdown.
Yeah.
So, of course, I mean, that was what, how many years of Countdown was?
Countdown started in 1974, and it was only going to be a 6 half-hour series. And then they liked it so much, they decided to extend it to 8 for that at the end of 1974, the last 2 being 1-hour shows. And then the surprise to me, and certainly I guess even to Michael Shrimpton, to Robbie Weeks, who the three of us come up with the idea, the ABC contacted Michael, who was I might say the boss of light entertainment for Victoria, and Michael rang me and said, "You wouldn't believe this, Meldrum, but we have got an extension for this year, for 75. I went, oh, great, how many shows? And he said, for the whole year.
Film clips had started to really happen, and of course,
well, film clips is an amazing one, because basically what we styled Countdown on was Top of the Pops in England, right? Mm-hmm. But Top of the Pops in England, everything was a live performance, right? Whereas we wanted to obviously have an overseas content, and we wanted clips, and there weren't that many made back then. But ABBA, because of their friend who was Swedish, a young film director studying at some college, he actually did 5 clips of ABBA as just for like his own thing as a thesis, you know. And so we got these clips, and so of course one of them was Mamma Mia, and we then played Mamma Mia and got great demand for it, and they wouldn't release it as a single, and got absolutely no from Sweden until we kept playing it, and finally they said, okay, well, it can only be released in Australia, Mamma Mia, because it was never meant to be a single, and of course the rest is history on that one.
The rest is history. And how long did you play? There was one, Fernando?
Oh my God. Fernando went 14 weeks on the charts, and as you know, would finish Countdown every week with the #1 song. And I'd had enough after 11 weeks, no knocking ABBA or Fernando, you know. But I thought, how many more times can we see people sitting around a campfire,
yeah.
You know? And so I said, right, I've got an idea here. I think it was like the 11th week, I said, right, we'll do the top 10, and then we'll do a prediction instead of showing the #1, you know. And we did that, and the ABC switchboard almost melted, you know, of people complaining and saying, how dare you, you know. So I can assure you that week 12, it was back to #1
Fernando.
with the campfire, you know. Very much so, you know. But I mean, certainly with ABBA, you know, it gave us, a great basis of, and then suddenly people overseas, record companies going, oh my God, film clips work. But the Michael Jackson era of the Thrillers, Billie Jean, Off the Wall,
it was something else, wasn't it?
Was something else, you know. And believe it or not, when MTV first started in America, they weren't going to play Michael Jackson videos, not an Afro-American. And it took the Rod Stewarts and the Paul McCartneys and the David Bowies, the Elton Johns of the world, of saying, well, if you don't want to play Michael Jackson, then don't play our videos either.
I had no idea.
Yeah, that actually happened.
I had no idea.
So how much changed now? I mean, with a wonderful black American president, Afro-American. Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it?
We'll take a short break and be back very soon with Ian Meldrum. That's amazing.
Yeah,
I had no idea.
Down.
Welcome back to Wrokdown. My guest this evening is Ian Meldrum. You seem to have the capacity to become best friends with the biggest stars in the world. Mm-hmm. How?
Well, I think it goes back to what we've been talking about, back in '66, right? Of Go Set, living with Ronnie Burns and his parents, of the Gary Sprys, the Bill Armstrongs of my life, where basically then, if you wanted to do something and you had enough passion for it, you could do it almost, and so through that time of 66, 7, 8, through all that time into the 70s, I was able to be a record producer, a manager, a writer for a paper, on television, doing radio, So by the time we got to Countdown and working and interviewing other artists, I would talk more about their product and what they were going through, of their understanding, and I was never a tabloid journalist, and it was more a chat as opposed to an interview, you know what I mean, like we're having now, So I think that was one reason. The real thing, obviously, gave me a passport to England, obviously with the Beatles, the whole thing like that, and getting the world scoop with John Lennon and Yoko, Even back with Michael Jackson, when I did the interview in 1977, I went to Epic, CBS, which is now Sony, of course, and said, look, I'd really like to get Michael Jackson if I can, And they said, well, it's not a priority because, he's not going to be with the Jacksons and it may not work, And I ended up doing that interview with him at Studio 54. It was a freezing night, and I thought, it was the last one. They were running late. I thought, well, he's not going to be there. And there, believe it or not, he was standing in the doorway, sheltering himself from the cold, looking like some bum on the street, And no minders, no one from the record company or anything like that. So once those things started happening and the world got around, then it became a passport for me, And as I say, I prefer to do a chat and talk about the artist and their music, not talking about their personal lives or whatever,
Absolutely. Can I just ask you, going back to when you said that you managed to get the exclusive with John Lennon, can you tell me a bit about that?
Yeah, by this stage, I was working for EMI in London through the success of The Real Thing, and with David Mackay, who was a great help to me. And in turn, I became good friends with a guy called Terry Doran, who was looking after Apple at the time, who gave me a sort of a part-time job at Apple in Savile Row. And I used to hang around there, and John and Yoko I got to know, and they decided they'd do an interview for the Aussie paper being ghosted at the time. And so I got this crappy little tape recorder and did the interview, and dutifully mailed it home, right? And about 3 weeks later, I had Philip Fraser, our editor, ring up and go, you never told us about the Beatles breaking up. And I went, when? And he said, what do you mean, when? I said, when did this happen, He said, well, it's on your interview. And I was so nervous, and I never listened to it back, so I had the world exclusive, which shows what a shocking journalist I really am, imagine, if they had told someone else after my interview, But, all those things happen,
So, at this moment in your life, what do you feel that you could dedicate 100% to, apart from the football?
Well, we're doing a whole new show, a new thing with MTV, which we were part of the VH1 Classic thing. I'm signed to Seven, the whole thing like that, And I'm doing a little bit of record production, but I'm enjoying life now, It's not I don't want it to be as frenetic as before, I always said that I'd die a very happy man if St Kilda could win another grand final. So I'm preparing my funeral now. And so, maybe down at the Junction Oval or the Moorabbin, we can have family day on the day after the grand final.
No pressure, boys.
And they can bury me, for God's sake,
There's no pressure at all, but they're going very well.
Melbourne, I love Melbourne so much. Never think of living anywhere else. I've lived overseas for stints and et cetera, But, Melbourne, to me, is the music capital of the world, of Australia, certainly,
The world.
And without a doubt, Melbourne is one of the great sporting capitals of the world. The facilities we have, and when you just drive around, looking, Rod Laver Stadium, Hisense Stadium, and then you look at the wonderful MCG, then you look at the Myer Music Bowl, and then you look at the Lexus Centre, Olympic Park, and then you think down the road is Etihad Stadium. You look across at the Arts Centre. It's extraordinary, and then the Aquatic Centre, and so we're quite capable of holding some of them. And then you have the Spring Carnival with Flemington and Caulfield. Yes. It's an amazing city. It truly is,
Well, I want to thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. We all love Molly. Mr. Ian Molly, thank you very much.
The only thing that worries me, you kept referring to me as Ian, right? And you're a great friend, but sometimes when someone refers to me as Ian, I think, oh God, I'm in trouble. They haven't called me Molly.
I like your mum.
It's been an absolute joy.
Thank you, darling.
Take care.
Thank you very much.